Shawty, don't fear the bouncer. He doesn't care about your baggy sweats or your apple bottom. Come on, shawty, don't fear the bouncer. Shawty, hit the floor. Don't fear the bouncer. The next thing that you know, don't fear the bouncer. Shawty got low. Crazy, all that spending my dough. Shawty, turn around, gave that booty a smack. Shawty, turn around and gave that booty a smack. Another booty smack each time she hits the floor. Come on, shawty, don't fear the bouncer. Shawty, hit the floor. Don't fear the bouncer. The next thing that you know, don't fear the bouncer. Shawty got low. Yeah, tears that soak my heart. Yeah, I feel we've grown apart. Yeah, fear is not for death. Yeah, shame so beaten head. Seems you've been running all the same to me. Seems you've been running, oh, nothing
Hey, hello. That was an awesome song. Yeah, dude. I got out of the darkness, waiting for death. Yeah, it's pretty sweet song. Hello, boss. Derailed day. What? Burbaps. I don't know, man. We got there's a NASA press conference about Artemis 2 at 2 p.m. So it's in an hour and 45 minutes. You see the link I posted before clicking going live? No, I did not. No, I didn't. So link it again. Link it again. Huh? What? Did you just roll out of bed? I haven't really slept. Oops. Not my fault.
Go and throttle up.
Not my fault. I swear. Be a lot cooler if you did. Be a lot cooler if you linked that link again. What is this? They put I lost it. They put the headache rack on. It's marked as mature for some raisins. What is this? I don't understand. Sham Arian 6 is going to miss their launch goal this year officially. An Edison L750. Here, chat. Take this L. What do we got here? What's that you got there? That truck has an amazing rack. Banana crane? Where? Oh! There's nothing like a good backhoe to help get work done, boy. I tell you what. We're all subs here. I'm not. It looks tiny in the pictures, but it's actually not tiny. Does that backhoe run off good, clean, burning propane? No, probably not. It runs off diesel fuel. It could run off propane, though, if you wanted it to. They go over everything. They go over what everything is in part of the stream. Bro, I see what's going on in here. I see what's going on in here. They got check it out there, chat. They got a nice Caterpillar diesel, probably a 3400 if I had to guess, sitting up at the front, and then they got a big old battery pack in the back there. Huh, I tell you what, boy, that's a nice truck. I was more talking about the headache rack. Well, they got battery packs there. What else you want to know? They're just stacks and stacks and stacks of battery with their coolant loops attached to them. Those are converters. No. Hi, who are you and what do you want? I'm EJ. I'm the space guy, and I haven't slept in a couple of days. What do you want? You came in here. Man. What is that? What's that? Ah, Chad, it's one of those flaming bags again. Don't tell me my business, devil chat. Call the fire department. This one's out of control. And poop again. Don't put it out with your boots, Tad. Anyway, that's cool, Thomas. Pretty neat. It's filthy. Yeah, it's filthy because it does work. Like most Fords, Tesla. You wouldn't know nothing about that, though. With your beige Volvo. You gotta go back to Carline, your beige Volvo. Okay, proceed with your stream. I'm watching. Right on, Quartz. Right on. That's a Cat C9 engine, rated at 350 kilowatts, 470 horsepower. If I recall, they tune it. They tune it to run at about 1800 RPM. Interesting. I think you need a larger coffee cup, one with a warmer in it, dude. I have a warmer. I have a hot plate on my desk. You stream, I watch. We are a team. Really? Alright. That's cool. The layers of coffee add flavor. You do that in the Navy. Yeah, see? Midge knows. Yeah. Alright.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
So guys, I had nice late night last night. So these rocket launches going to like launching at 11, midnight, 1 a.m. They're really screwing me up. They're really screwing up my sleep schedule because it's like it's all the time. It's all the time. Yeah, seriously, it's all the time. Yep, that's really screwing me up. And there's some other stuff that I'm dealing with, just stuff. So yeah, the result is me getting about 1 hour's sleep, maybe 2 cumulatively. Yeah, so that's good. Try 5 a.m. Oh, that's when I woke up. Yeah, that's when I woke up. I don't know if you could tell. I follow now. How about that? That's fair, Quartz. That's fair. Hey, you guys want to see something fun? You want to see what my hometown looks like right now? You want to see what my hometown looks like right now? Look at this. Oops. Well, I'll tell you, that's a lot of water. Oops. That's a lot of water. This is not where I live. I do not live here. That's up in the city. That sucks. That's good. That's not a town, it's a river. Hey, it's next to the town. Anyway, so we got our Artemis 2 media update in about an hour and 30 minutes. Give or take. I want to see how a town near me looked like the other day. I don't. I really don't. I'm not going to lie to you. Is that snow? Oh, well, that's good. Alright. Summer rains ended here 3 weeks ago. Flooding, also flooding and stuff happened. No, hail. It's kind of like snow. You enjoyed, Akila, you enjoyed the commentary on the NSF booster test. Thank you, thank you. I really try to bring my A game, unlike right now. This is cool. In the meantime, yeah, so I'm going to be a little groggy here for a second, which is why I didn't put us on any particular game category. Oh. This is cool. We can watch this in the meantime. Hey kids, you want to learn about rockets?
My name is Ian Solomon.
What up, Ian?
I am a integration and test engineer at Firefly Aerospace.
Nice beard.
I work on the Lightning engine here, and I take it from its life cycle pretty much from once the parts are in the engine shop to when it goes to space. Be one of the best engineers in the industry, this is the place to come. It's a perfect combination of startup environment along with enough hardware to actually make progress where you can just hone your skills like no other.
Yeet!
I come into work every day because I know I'm going to learn. I'm going to improve, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to make this place better too. And I love seeing it. So I just love the idea knowing that not only what I do as an individual, but what this company does to me is just making us both get better and better and better until we get to the point where we're launching alphas to space every month.
Word. I want to see the motor. Yes. These are pipes. I go to work every day because I don't want to. You don't want to get fired. Yeah, I know what you mean. I do. That's a cool test stand. Look at how beefy the motor mount actually is. Thing's got a lot of power. You can tell it's got a lot of power. It's raw power. You can see the regen lines looks like too. Let me go look at it. Hike it guy. Oh no. Oh yes. Yes. Tap off, perhaps? Flykin! What's wrong with you? How dare you? That dude's hand in the engine reminds you of this. Ooh, there goes Quadranero's power coupling. You can't tell me that's not you. Yeah? That's not me. Don't hurt me. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it now that I'm looking. Yeah.
Discovery, go at throttle.
And go 62-month resub. What kind of concert only costs 45 cents? A 50-cent concert featuring Nickelback. Sorry, I just needed to relace my shoes or something. Stupid question. How do they keep the injector plate from getting obliterated? The injector plate from getting obliterated. Obliterated by what? The rocket? Because the explodey stuff goes out the other side, not the. If it's coming towards the injector plate, you got a problem. Oh yeah, on flip-flops. Ah, it's okay, Plankton. He's wearing sandals. Hey, I'm gonna tie your shoe if you don't give that back. But I'm wearing sandals. It's okay, Plankton. He's wearing sandals. The boom boom just confuses me. How does the explosion happen so close to it, but it doesn't damage it? I mean, it's made out of... Usually the injector plate's made out of something similar to the combustion chamber. So it's just as strong as the combustion chamber. If the injector plate was going to fail, it probably wouldn't fail itself. You'd probably blow a gasket before that happens. But it's strong, made out of metal. The injector plates are not like... They're not individual, like, fuel injectors. Injector plate design is... interesting, to say the least. It's designed to impinge and basically atomize fuel going into the combustion chamber. If you keep it at high pressure, basically everything flows downstream. I mean, that's the short answer. Long story short, the injector plates kind of look like shower heads, guys. They kind of look like shower heads, but they're... They're usually really strong. They're made out of really strong materials. Ideally, you really don't want any part of the combustion chamber, the injector plate, side, the combustion chamber walls, throat, nozzle. You really don't want those being made out of different materials, right? Because they're going to heat and expand at different rates if it's made out of different stuff. I mean, with that being said, you could do it if you were trying to do certain, like any particular thing, you could do that if you want. Speaking of footwear, just check the footwear the workers in today's OSHA complaint shop are wearing. Are those Crocs? Yep. Okay. For some reason I thought they were made out of brass or something. They can be made out of whatever you want, like, and it depends on what you're trying to do. Even the injector geometry can be part of the reason why it stays nice and cool. I mean, but yeah, like I said, as long as you're flowing downstream, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you can't blow a gasket if you don't get something right. I mean, that's one of the hard problems. It's one of the hard problems with rocket motors. You gotta keep everything flowing downstream. If something flows upstream, that usually is not good for it. I would say like 99% of the time that's not good for it. Yeah, where's that footage of that hard start? Yeah, here you go. Where are ya, bud? Ready? Want to see it? Want to see something fun? Watch this. Uh-oh. See the fire? The fire is supposed to be going that way. It's not going that way. It's coming towards the rocket engine. Uh-oh. That's not, that's not good for it. Whoops. See, that's, you gotta keep everything flowing downstream or stuff like that happens. But see, yeah, the flange failed in this particular case. The injector plate is still doing injector things, which is pretty cool. But that's a really, really, really expensive pulse jet right there. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, right? Yeah, so that's what happens when you hard start rocket engines. This is why you prime them, and if you're using certain propellants, you have to give the propellant a place to go, like methane and hydrogen and whatnot. You got to give it a place to go. If you don't, it's going to find some place to go and blow up. Something like that, a hard start scenario is not necessarily because they didn't give the propellants any place to go, but there's a bunch of things that can cause hard starts like that. Improper fuel mixture, ullage ingestion, which is what happened to SN11. That's why we never saw SN11 ever again after it launched. And we just found a bunch of pieces. Yeah, they just found a bunch of pieces of it. One of the Raptors hard started and literally blew the entire back of the Starship apart. Good times. It'll go right to your thighs. And then you blow up. This is Wish Raptor. Nice, Quartz. Do you have any idea when we could get a new KSP dev update? It feels like it's been a while. Bananas. Please hold. So this was about a week ago. Filming some fire today. Stay tuned. And if you look, that's Naderade right there. And that looks like a Unity dev environment testing re-entry heating. Another Ariane 6 setback, Sag. Oops. Particle effects. Very nice. Nice. We got some nice rule of thirds going on here. Very good. Yeah, see. So, I'm not sure when we're getting the next update, to be honest with you. But, yeah, we had that they said stay tuned, so it's happening sooner rather than later. Last update, when was the last one? 0.14? Please hold. Last one they posted was on June 30th. Okay. There was a on the 21st of July, there was a dev diary with Nirtea about the upcoming thermodynamic systems. If we want to go check that out, we can read here. Hey everyone, Nirtea here, one of the designers in the KSP2 team here at Intercept. If you've been around for a bit, you might know me as Nirtea. Yeah, Nirtea's cool. Chris is a good dude. In aerospace, a recurring joke is that every discipline considers their part of the project most critical to mission success. Propulsion, obviously without engines, you're getting nowhere. Mission analysis, where will you go without an actual mission? How are you steering the rocket without guidance, navigation, and control? Electrical and life support, obviously key. Pulling off a successful space mission is really a massive interdisciplinary undertaking. It's that way with KSP2 as well. Different community members have varied perspectives on what features we should add or improve next. As KSP1 modding community proves, there are thousands of possible quirks and features, and dozens of possible approaches to each feature. There's a lot to take in. One gameplay system that we have heard a lot of enthusiasm for is thermodynamics. And thermodynamics is very dear to my heart, Unexpected Doug. In this dev blog, I'm going to go into the design of the thermal systems for KSP2. It is rather long, but it is a complex topic worthy of discussion, and the community deserves good analysis of what we're doing, where the core challenges are, and where we are making specific design choices for interesting gameplay. Thermal challenges. In KSP2, we try to introduce prospective rocketeers to the edges of various space disciplines. Nice. A lot of this skews towards mission planning and vehicle design, but making sure we touch on many of the core spaceflight challenges is important. Heat management is one of the more underrepresented challenges in spaceflight, which is too bad because it's pretty... We are aiming to have a much larger scope of thermal gameplay events when compared to KSP1. We need to be able to surface new and exciting challenges that range from the mundane, don't dunk a Kerbal in an active volcano, to the exotic, fitting a few thousand square meters of radiator to your interstellar vessel. To the really hardcore, building a functioning mining colony in the shade of a mountain on a tidally locked planet that's really close to a star. This all comes from the vastly increased set of environments we have under construction, parts you use, and missions you'll fly. What's this early stream? It's 12:45, dude. I always stream this early. It is 12:45, right? Yeah, okay. On a note of kitchens, are you going to tell us about your dishwasher situation? No. No. I'm not. We need to be able to surface new and exciting challenges that range from the mundane... Okay, I already got that. This all comes from the master... Okay, what this fundamentally means is that for KSP2, we have to redesign the entire thermal system from scratch. This system needs to do a few things right that we felt couldn't be accomplished by the KSP1 thermal model. It must feel authentic and model the core challenges of heat for spaceflight, atmospheric flight, and colony building. Colony. At the same time, we should have an appropriate level of abstraction so that it is teachable in the same way that other KSP systems are, such as fuel and power flow. It must be predictable, plannable, and stable enough so players can feel confident planning missions and building vehicles or colonies in contexts that involve heat. It needs to work at different scales. We need to handle a single heat-producing part at 1 time warp, and we need to handle 50 heat-producing parts at 10 million time warp. 10 million time warp confirmed. These are big challenges, and they don't even include the technical challenges of making the system stable and performant throughout the whole game. Divining core user stories. In designing a system for KSP2, we often want to get a sense that the physics and reality that relate to a system. The physics and reality that can relate to a system. These can inform the user stories we want players to grapple with when they play the game. Yep. Tired. Yep. The walls are closing in, chat. I'm getting very tired. Okay. There are 3 core areas of heat management we want to deal with. Generation and removal of heat using parts on a vessel or colony, re-entry and atmospheric heating on planets with atmospheres, environmental heat sources and sinks, oceans that can affect vessels and colony. Nice. 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 Yes. I'll start out by examining some of the physics and reality behind these stories. What is a sink? It's something that you let through the front door. Let that sink in, Tomast. How dare you? It's raining outside. Something to clean dishes in. That's right. That's right, Stealthy Sumo. I will now take this point in time to step up on my soapbox and say the sink is not where you store dishes. It's for washing dishes. Okay? Dishes belong in the cabinet or in the dishwasher. I called you out. That's right. Your sink's full of dishes and it's friggin' gross and it smells awful. Now what? Now what? I will not be taking questions on this. So, broken dishwasher, huh? No. It works just fine. It's running right now. Your face is gross and it smells awful. Panta, why don't you just admit you don't put dishes in the dishwasher and you have a dirty stack of dishes that smells like the inside of a butthole sitting in your sink? This isn't about me, it's about you. Sorry. I'll get back to this. You hand wash dishes? Yeah, you would. I think you're just projecting. I am absolutely not projecting. And I have Remo to back me up. I hate dishes in the sink, dude. I hate it. I hate it with a fiery passion. It's not as bad if you thoroughly rinse the dishes first. If you're gonna rinse the dishes, just put them in the dishwasher or clean them. It takes 2 seconds. Hello again. Popsicle is flavored ice or ice cream, so no. Alright, that's fair, doctor. That's fair. That's fair. Also not meat. You're going to have a field trip. You're going to have a field trip when you have a teenager. Yeah. Man, my kids leave dishes in the sink. I'm going to be hell to pay. Tell us how you really feel. What? Okay. All right. Avoiding meltdowns. Like what I just had. See, we're talking about thermodynamics. Is a frozen banana smoothie a popsicle, though? I suppose if you took a smoothie that was made out of bananas and then you froze it in a popsicle shape with a popsicle stick, then yes. But who says sink meaning oceans? Okay, Tomas, all right, to really answer your question. Things can absorb heat, okay? Certain things can absorb heat more than others, right? So, like, I don't know, this aluminum can absorb a certain amount of heat energy, right? Until it hits critical mass and then it melts, right? So a sink refers to something that can absorb an insane amount of heat, right? And basically there's more stuff to heat up inside of it. Like water is used as a heat sink all the time. Like, I don't know, pad deluge systems, maybe. Maybe that has something to do with it. You can use other things for heat sinks, like oceans. But you can use ocean as a heat source, too, via geothermal heating, if you really wanted to. Oh no, my arms will potentially implode if I place the dish in the sink and then decide to wash them at the same time. So, Tomas, does that help? A heat sink is something that can absorb a lot of heat before it melts or evaporates, like an ocean. Like, I'll give you an example. Our ocean is a great sink for carbon dioxide. Yeah, the ocean absorbs a lot of CO2. It's a great CO2 sink. Probably shouldn't be doing that, but yeah. What are you gonna do? I feet wash my dishes? Yeah, Josh, I bet that's good for it. I'm just gonna ignore what Court said. Okay. In everyday life, almost every useful process generates some level of waste heat. Your computer generates waste heat when it plays KSP2. A nuclear reactor making electricity generates waste heat, and even your body generates excess heat. Heat is stored in the balls, chat. I don't know if you knew that. Want to know a funny thing? I'm not kidding. Look it up. It's science. A good rule of thumb is that the more exciting the piece of tech you're running is, the larger the waste heat generated. And there are some really cool pieces of tech we're looking at for use in KSP2. Yeah, Doom, I think my PC was generating a little bit of... Ooh. I think KSP was generating a good amount of heat there. That was from yesterday. Oop. That's why P is warm. Yeah, sure. That's the reason. Cool. When things heat up, we need to get rid of the excess energy somehow. Not getting rid of it results in consequences like nuclear meltdowns. When will you learn? Hey. Conduction, convection, radiation. Say it with me. Bodegas. Yes, very good. Appa Zappa, you're my only friend. Convection is just conduction with extra steps. Sinks are where you put heat to store to get rid of aluminum until it goes away. I am a bit disappointed. If it's one thing I do not like to be, it is to be disappointed. Negative.
I am a meat popsicle. There are 3 processes that can do this: convection, conduction, and radiation. Convection is a very effective way of dispersing heat, using atmosphere or fluid currents to move heat away from a heat object. Conduction is also efficient and relies on 2 objects touching. I don't know why I did that. Heat will flow through the hot to cold object. Yeah, remember, hot to cold, not cold to hot, all right? Radiation is the least effective way of dispersing heat and relies on the tendency of hot objects to emit photons, which carry away heat energy. 2 meat popsicles? Yes. Yes, very good. ADD break. Here's some nice pictures of Booster 9. Is Booster 9 a popsicle? Yes. Stop with the cool pictures. No. I found you a flight simulator setup. What the f... You got this whole thing and you just got a pair of CH Pro pedals, that's it? You got this whole thing and some CH rudder pedals, that's it? I mean, don't get me wrong, CH rudder pedals are good. Oh, I was gonna make a joke, it's so bad. That's like controlling a vehicle with an Xbox controller. I'm not going to say which one. I'm a horrible person. I acknowledge my horribleness. Cheers. Anyway, I acknowledge that I am a piece of trash. Sorry. It's Logitech, get it right. Oh, does that make it any better? Or are you freaking sorry? I'll be there with you on that one. Would a PlayStation controller be better? Nah. Gamecast controller. I got Gamecast. I mean, I kind of am. Joking about people getting hurt is not cool. No, not Dreamcast. Gamecast. Yeah. Alright, anyway, back to heat. Actually, radiation is really cool. The radiation is the least effective way of dispersing heat and relies on the tendency of hot objects to emit photons. So, black body radiation. Basically, they use light in space to keep stuff cool. Yeah. Pretty crazy, right? Like, I'll give you an example. We watched Starlink last night, and Falcon 9 second stage, the nozzle gets really freaking bright. There you go. There you go. That's why it doesn't melt in the vacuum. Pretty cool. I'm offended, and I request you take it back, please. I take it back and acknowledge that I am a piece of trash, John. Like, I got you, man. We good. If you're good, I'm good. Heat in space is a real problem. You might think that it's cold in space after all. It is very high up and dark, which we associate with cold. Seems reasonable. Seems logical. Trekkies among the audience may be familiar with the famous line from Star Trek II. It is very cold in space, which reveals that though Khan has great flair for the dramatic, his grasp of thermodynamics might not be all that great. Specifically, without air or another medium, the only way we can get rid of heat is through radiation using heat radiators. Yeah, I just said that. Yeah. For KSP2, we want to pull several specific user stories out of this idea of heat transfer. Parts on a vessel or colony should be able to generate heat. These could include engine drills, factories, and power generators. Players should be able to make use of 3 processes of heat transfer to cool vessels. That could be using radiation, with radiator parts in space, or by using the local atmosphere's convectible abilities on a planet. Or possibly by using conduction to treat an asteroid as in heat. Or possibly using conduction to treat an asteroid as a heat sink. Oh. John, I am aware that Xbox controllers are used in various Department of Defense applications. I was referring specifically to civilian-owned watercraft. I don't think you got the... I think you missed that part, though. That part went right over. Yeah. It's just... These stories are not completely unfamiliar to KSP1 players. Drills and ISOUs generated heat that needed to be removed with radiators, and our 3 heat processes were simulated with great accuracy for focused vessels. However, we need to expand this to handle much higher fluxes. Remember, chat, give no flux, okay? Expand the range of parts that can generate heat, and most importantly, improve on how all this is communicated to the player. Flux that. No, flux you. Okay. Slightly singed landings. When spacecraft re-enter the atmosphere, they travel at a high velocity that the compression of the air in front of the spacecraft creates extreme heating and is liable to damage or destroy the spacecraft. That's a way to put that, yep. Special flight paths can be used to reduce the heating, and special materials are used to withstand extreme temperatures, often through ablation, where the material burns up slowly during re-entry events, and in doing so carries away the heat. That's right. No, that's the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, 6-shot. Not modal interaction of magnetoreluctance. That's different. Also capacitive directance. Those are 2 different things. Don't get confused. This is an Acura integral part, an important part of spaceflight. So definitely something we want to represent in KSP2. We can collect a few more smaller user stories from this. Traveling in atmosphere at high velocities should cause vessels to heat up. Peepo G. Players should be able to use occlusion to protect parts on vessels from re-entry heating. Okay. Players should have access to specific parts that are more effective at mitigating heat than others. Again, this is a similar set of things to KSP1, but we go up in scale again, with more exoplanets, higher velocity, better ingredients, and better pizzas, and more varied type of atmospheres. We increase the scale of the challenge we need to consider. Exoplanets? More like exothermic planets. Aside from re-entry, we need to think about environments. Traveling through the KSP2 universe will expose your Kerbals to everything from somewhat pedestrian to exotic environments, with situations like close proximity to a star, infernal, glacial, or just right atmospheres, heated or molten ground, and icy or frozen planets. These are all things that, when sending probes or Kerbals to another planet, we would like the player to consider. We want to build interesting puzzles that require clever use of parts, innovative use of the environment, and clever mission design to solve. This means that all the heat transfer stuff from earlier should be influenced by the environment. A cold planet might give you a useful bonus to run your mining drills. A lava planet should give extra interesting colonial challenge. Mustafar? Jab, you were the chosen one! We can extract another set of... I'm kind of falling into the 60s announcer voice. You know what? I'm committing to it. We can extract another set of user stories from these environmental considerations. Parts exposed to strong solar illumination should heat up. Immersion in atmospheres and oceans should heat up or cool down parts. Proximity or contact with surface features should heat up or cool down parts as well. Can we cook Kerbals on hot planets? That seems to be very heavily implied here. Are those pieces of paper or ice? I can't tell. Why is the capsule surrounded by trash? Cool Whip. Ah, yes. Top your capsule off with a nice dollop of Cool Whip. Wish people spoke like this. Same with the transatlantic accent. You know what, Josh? I really would like technical videos to sound like this again, and I just had an idea. That's what that weird pause was. Maybe we should start an aerospace info channel on YouTube that only speaks like this and does all of the documentaries in classic 1960s fashion. Your brain is melting again? I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here for energy. Yeah, not doing too well today. Not doing too well. But I am soldiering on, boats against the current, borne senselessly into the past. Great Gatsby. Yeah, that was the last. Yeah. You're going to need a mic from the 60s. That's actually a good idea. We should do that. That would require a lot of graphic design, though. And we have to get the right music in the background. It has to be music like this. There, hold on. It has to be like this. Wait for it. Rotor! What's up, man? You never know what to say in these. Just say hi. I'd be down to toss in $10 a month towards production. All right. I potentially have a solution here. Tell an aerospace joke. No. That's the joke. It's good for an engineering joke. Marvin and fam, ready to take control. I love that 60s announcer voice. That's actually... I kind of wish more stuff was that simple nowadays, you know? Like, even... Hang on. Even, like, the 80s infomercials, right?
Lights, Kepler's
This one.
in complex...
Here. Over here. When ancient man looked
When
towards the
ancient man
heavens
looked
from
to the
guidance
heavens
from the
for guidance
gods,
from the gods, he
noticed
noticed
star patterns
and began to document.
no, I don't know all the words, I swear. Alright, back to the Dev Diary. Let's go. Billions and billions of stars. You want me to talk like Carl Sagan? Well, Chad, according to ancient historians, Mountain Dew is the best soft drink ever. Turbo Encabulator video from memory. For a number of years now, work has been proceeding on the crudely conceived idea of not only applying inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but automatically synchronizing cardinal gram meters. Such an instrument is the Turbo Encabulator. Now basically, the only new principle involved, instead of power being distributed by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it is produced by the modal interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive duractance. I don't want to do the whole thing. Did your SSTO taxi test yesterday? No, but we got the wings figured out, dude. I don't know if I should be worried. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurring bearings were in direct line with the pentametric fan. Every seventh conductor connected to a non-reversible tremie pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the Grammys. The latter consisted of 7 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes so fitted to the amb-efficient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The Turbo Encabulator has now reached a high level of development. It is successfully being used in the operation of No for Trunnions. Moreover, when a fluorescent score motion is required, it can also be enjoined and drawn with a reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal repleneration. It's not cheap, but I'm sure the government will buy it. How can you say this with a straight face? Science. Science. Alright. These user stories are another core expansion of KSP1. In particular, the interaction between the part layer and the environment layer is going to have a much larger effect. More on this later. He said moron. Smaller, simpler problems require modern solutions. But wait, there's more. Parts should have a variety of thermal parameters to make them easier or harder to use in select thermal situations, heating up varying rates, explode at different points. Parts exposed to engine exhaust jets should heat up. We can't neglect the little stuff. When designing this system for interesting gameplay, we need to think about how we will represent the range of thermal properties we want for parts. So parts should have some heat... Wait, no. So parts should have some different heat tolerances, some different heat limits. Oh, and we want engine exhaust jets to generate heat. Can't have you pointing a torch drive at a colony with no consequences. Where do you store all these quotes? Positronic brain. I really want some 1960s mono-static-y French horn music being played in the background. Would be perfect. Can I voice act for that new Space News channel? I don't know, maybe. Where the info on anniversary and birth dates go. John, I got a steel trap. It's weird, and I try not to be too weird about it. But, yeah. I got a pretty big hard drive up here. If I could just get it to work how I want it to work. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Broken hard drive? No, not broken. Fragmented. With movie quotes. And cool voices. Putting it together. Let's recap. From the above set of thermal user stories, we want to have a thermal system in Kerbal Space Program 2 that will let us eat vegetables like lettuce. Create parts that generate and remove vast quantities of heat via the 3 physical heat removal methods. Simulate atmospheric entry and mitigate it with heat shields. Model a vast set of environments from cold to hot and have those directly feed into the 2 previous bullets. Get down. Provide appropriate variation in thermal part behaviors. We can check these stories against the 4 design pillars of KSP2 to make sure they fit well. Building cool and unique rockets. Realistic spaceflight. Defining and achieving unique way goals. Exploring new planets. Kerbal Space Program. Is this the part where people start asking you what color they were when they joined and what you were doing at that time? I always feel this happens every time your steel trap of a brain gets brought up. Yes, Phoenix. Yes, precisely, Mr. CTS-CP. Just saying. Spoon, what's up, man? You got some pretty trick RAM timings with the hard drive from Minecraft. I'm not entirely sure what that means, Doom, but alright. I mean, Phoenix, I used to be really, once upon a time, dude, that used to really kind of, freak me out. Get anxiety because you're worried you're just going to remember something randomly about someone, right? And they're going to be like, how the hell do you remember that? That's a little weird, right? So, yeah. Turns out that remembering every mundane detail about things really, really is a good way to not make friends. Yeah. Well. Yeah, so it used to be it was a little anxiety-inducing in high school. Yeah. High school? Anxiety? Wait. Then I decided to use it to my advantage. And that works really well here, which is good. I definitely found it cool that you always remember stuff, but you got to apply that skill to not remembering random things about people you guys, that's different, but I'd be hanging out with people and I'd be like, dude, remember that one time you dropped your phone and this is what humans do, right? And people would be like, what are you talking about? I'd be like, that one time you dropped your phone, it broke. This is like a flip phone at the time. They'd be like, nah. I'm like, dude, that was 3 months ago. How do you not remember this? And they're like, it was 3 months ago. How do you remember it? I'm like, oh, well, okay. Is spherical cow the same as cow controller? Cow flow rate. Consider a spherical cow in a vacuum. Okay, so actually, in addition, the thermal system needs to be predictable and plannable. More on that in a bit. He said moron again. Consider a spherical cow in a vacuum. Something I touched on earlier is that the KSP2 thermal system needs an appropriate level of simulation and detail. The level of detail we build into any system depends on user stories. If the system is too detailed, we may build something that is difficult for a player to understand, or too difficult for us to tune, creating undesirable edge cases and making it impossible to fill those user stories. I disagree. It's a very good game, but I think Donkey Kong has the most impossible user story ever. Or is it Mortal Kombat? Anyway, if it's too simple, we might compromise our realistic spaceflight pillar and make things too easy for the advanced player. Pythos, Mortal Kombat on Sega Genesis is like the best video game ever. I disagree. It's a very good game, but I think Donkey Kong is the best game ever. Kind of inclined to agree with Billy. I mean, Mortal Kombat's good, but Donkey Kong Country on Genesis was a game changer, to be honest. That was a game changer for platforming games. Mortal Kombat is a movie. Hey, don't change the subject. Why do you sound like Ray Zelinsky trying to steal my father's brake pad company? I make car parts for the American working man because that's what I am and that's who I care about. I like the metaphor of a spherical cow in a vacuum. If we need to analyze a cow for some reason or other, we could assume the cow was a sphere. And assume it was in a vacuum. This is a fairly simple situation to analyze physically. This may, however, lead to oversimplification of the problem. I can describe our search for a good thermal system as a search for the right geometric approximation in environmental context for our cow. Should our cow be cylindrical? Should it be composed of several boxes? We probably shouldn't model all the contours of a real cow in a grassy field because that would be very complex. That fluid simulation doesn't look too bad. How about a U-Haul? Good reference. Chat. Observe. This is art. Please take 5 seconds and stare and reflect on said art. And you are now cultured. This cow is exchanging energy with its local environment, as one does. No, I think that was a picture of Ferrari's wind tunnel simulations. Yeah, for Sonic. Yes, that's right, Tom. Yes. The right thermal model for KSP2 has a good blend of realism. It's all our user stories, and is simple enough for players to understand and engage with. The right level of simplicity also allows us to build good intuitive tools to help players understand, in a nutshell, where their vessel or colony may overheat, and how to solve it. Determinism versus simulation. Fermi versus Schrödinger. These are all historic battles of history and battles for the ages. A common trait in simulation game types is the level of determinism versus simulation. The more simulation in a game, the more the game relies on lower level rules to drive gameplay. A good example of this is in our thermal context is a heat radiator. Determining how a radiator performs could be approached in a very simulation-centric fashion. Define the usable area of the radiator. Determine the temperature of the radiator in response to various factors, each of which might also need to be simulated. Use physical relationships, such as the Stefan Boltzmann law, to model the amount of heat removed by the radiator. Wasn't this supposed to be lower level rules? Whatever. 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 Also, Zap Brannigan, master of the universe and everything in between. Also this year's winner of Dupe's Modesty Award. I just kept sending waves of men, knowing the killbots had a kill limit they eventually shut down. Kept informed the men. I've made it with a woman. You're welcome. Did you see that Frank Sinatra AI music? I wonder if they can copyright strike that. I don't know. The simulation approach provides a high-precision approximation of radiator heat rejection. However, it does require more design and computational work, as we need to figure out that temperature value, and we now create additional challenges of teaching the players about the radiator's area, the radiator's temperature, and how the two combined feed into the physical relationship. The latter is harder if the relationship is complicated. Here, it is somewhat complex. Heat radiation is proportional to temperature raised to the power of 4. In addition, we may create simulation-level inconsistencies. Is this too detailed compared to other things that are simulated in the game? That's a lot to unpack. Well, no, you just click a button and the radiator unpacks itself, dude. Am I missing something? Alternatively, a simpler deterministic method could be used. We might just, define the amount of heat removed by the radiator. 1,000 kilowatts radiative flux. Remember, chat? Give no flux. No, with radiators you want to give a lot of flux. Just... what? A radiator with a single deterministic flux value informed by physical relationships. This is evidently a lot less complex for a designer to manage and a player to understand. Often we can mix the two approaches. In this example, we could use physical relationships to guide what value we set. For example, we make the values for heat removal chosen related to the surface area of the part and derive them from typical temperature relationships, but never directly show this to the player. This has some advantages. For example, decoupling gameplay from visuals, so we have more flexibility to work on these separately. KSP-1 erred on the side of simulation in this trade. In the KSP-1 thermal model, all vessel parts calculated their own energy exchanges. Yep. Via convection, conduction, and radiation, with the environment as well as other parts. Calculated internal sources of heat, tracked up to 3 different temperatures, and required considerable frowning at KSpedia to start to understand in a way that you can engage with the system. Actually, fellas, you want to know high part counts in KSP-1? You want to know what's really screwing it up? That. Yeah. It's the thermal simulation that really bogs the game down. Yeah, true story. Ever notice you get crappy frames when you re-enter with high part count? A lot of flux given. That's the reason. I actually remember when they put the thermodynamic system in the game, it was 1.0.3, I think. And initially, it was... They had to dial it back a little bit in 1.03, 1.04, and then 1.05, and they didn't really dial it back to like 1.1. And they really got it dialed in like 1.2, but still, it'll still lag your computer because of the temperature simulation. But we use that to our advantage with the shuttle. I was using conduction with tiles to actually make a heat shield out of panels for the shuttle. Yeah, I use that to our advantage. Pretty cool. See? Isn't that neat? The diagram below shows how these systems come together in a simple vessel. Yep, there's a thermal hierarchy in KSP. It works exactly like this. Yep. You can part to environment and part to part. You can flux heat from part to part in KSP. Really, 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 really useful to use that to your advantage. In this particular case, on like my shuttle, for instance, the tiles are the skin. Tiles absorb all the heat and they flux heat to other parts, and basically the shuttle works like a gigantic heat sink, which that's pretty much how the tiles work in real life, to be honest with you. That on the real space shuttle, that's what the tiles do. You can flux a lot of heat into those tiles before they start to do anything. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens. Now, I don't think the tiles conduct heat from one to the other, but on the other hand, the tiles, if you notice on like the space shuttle, for instance, they seem to have a gap in between. That gap actually isn't there during re-entry because the entire vessel heats up, like the entire shuttle heats up, and the tiles, it actually expands, and the tiles actually butt up against each other. Yeah. During re-entry, the tiles actually make a seal. That's why you want a gap in your tiles, where, like when you go to build something down here. Starship is going to do the same thing. Yeah, the tiles will expand a little bit, and they'll butt up against each other and create a seal, which is that's really freaking cool, actually. I think that's really neat. Similar to the SR-71, Caffeine, most vessels that go through high thermal deltas, SR-71, XB-70, Concorde, any fighter jet, space shuttle, capsules, all do this. Yeah. You have to take into account the environment around you. Like the Concorde actually gets a little bit longer when it's going Mach 2. Because the whole thing is absorbing some shock heating from aerodynamic compression. Or it's just heating, right? And think about that. Where that heat goes is going to affect the structure of the vehicle. What makes Concorde so ridiculously impressive is how just gigantic that thing actually is and how it distributes the heat when it's going that fast. How it distributes the heat in a way that actually has certain parts be a heat sink and has the whole vehicle actually expand a little bit. It's kind of crazy because there are certain parts of Concorde, like on the flight deck, when the vehicle, when Concorde was going Mach 2, when it was cruising across the Atlantic, right, there would actually be gaps in the floor because the British and French engineers took into account that the whole vehicle is going to expand. The thing literally is breathing. It's so they allowed for tolerances between parts to expand and contract, and that actually makes gaps in the floor. Yeah, at high speed. And the pilots put their hat in the gap. And then when the plane landed, the gap closed and their hat got stuck in the floor. It was a tradition on Concorde. I mean, Concorde isn't just, it's not just some like, we got to make it pointy and it goes fast. There's a lot more going on there, especially with the thermodynamics that not a lot of people know about. It's pretty damn impressive, actually. Now, here, let me show you something like this. I mean, we looked at these pictures a little bit earlier, but think about the temperature differential between here and right there. Those aren't that far away from each other, but you have a temperature swing from like minus 200 C right here, or maybe not minus 200. Like, let's say minus 170 C to like 500 C down here. Like a couple meters away from each other. Well, more than a couple, but you get the idea. It shouldn't take this long to replace Concorde. We got some stuff in the works, though, John. On the last flight, yeah, this photo. Yep. There you go. The whole thing expands and contracts. And honestly, shout out to any if any person ever sees this VOD and they're a flight engineer on the Concorde, you are an absolute legend. The plane does not fly correctly without you. The Concorde had such a complicated fuel distribution system it would sap fuel when it was going supersonic. The flight engineer has to constantly trim the fuel between all the tanks, because if you look, Concorde doesn't seemingly have a lot of room. The wings are pretty thin, right? And the passenger, the fuselage of the plane is not that big. There's not that much room for fuel. I mean, it does have wet wings, but it also has some tanks internal as well. The flight engineer would constantly have to move fuel around to make sure that the center of mass and center of lift and center of thrust played nice with each other. If the flight engineer misses the trim by a little bit, the thing will spin out of control. True story. Manual fuel trimming, because that tech wasn't there yet. Yeah. Willie, a friend served on submarines. He said that he read a warning sign once that said, "Don't place anything above this cabinet." When submerged, the 12-inch gap was gone. Interesting. Yeah. I assume we could do that with a Game Boy today. I mean, John, throw your hat into the ring then. You know what I'm saying? You think you can do better? You know what I'm saying? Thread from Firefly. After this. The KSP-1 simulation-focused thermal model is shown by the in-game KSPedia. In KSP-2, we've made the decision to rely on what I'll call a reality-informed deterministic model with fewer moving parts. This model is still complex enough to hit all user stories I've defined earlier so as not to compromise our commitment to reality, but will use a reduction in complexity to achieve a much better player comprehension. What's changed? Given the above, where are we modifying the simulations? Simplifying temperature values. We want to avoid having a player interact with 3 different part temperatures when planning missions and playing the game. One is ideal. Okay. Part high resolution thermodynamics. We don't have a lot of user stories that benefit from simulating conduction between parts, or intrinsic simulated thermal emission. A lot of this time, this reduces to equilibrium in KSP-1, particularly at high time warp factors. In addition, if we want this simulation to apply to vessels in the background, we need to simplify things. It's hard enough computing thermodynamics for 500 parts on a vessel. See what I mean? Imagine if we wanted to crunch fancy thermodynamics on 50,000 parts on 100 vessels. This has to scale effectively and be performant. Simplifying environmental interactions. Actually, chat, if you guys don't mind, I have a question about this. Anybody here software? Anybody here familiar with like software engineer? Anybody? I'm starting to wake up, which is good. All systems, perfect. Okay. All right, fellas, hear me out. So, they don't want to screw up the thermodynamics because KSP2 is basically multiplayer architecture. I've said many times that their software, I'm probably not going to use this word right, their software suite is centered for KSP2 around multiplayer. So, 50,000 parts on 100 vessels in the background, right? They want a simplified thermodynamic model to compute all these. Now, I have a question. Obviously, from a software point of view, coding one thermal model for all vessels, background and in scene, is going to be a simple way to do things, right? That's a very simplified way of doing things. And Nirtea said it, and once again, I'm not trying to say like Chris doesn't know what he's talking about. That guy is very, very smart. And if he said one is ideal, I'm inclined to believe him. This is just my brain doing, oh, well, what if we did this, right? And I fully acknowledge that I know nothing about software engineering, right? So why is it possible, like, do you think it would be that tall of an order to have whatever's local in the scene have a higher fidelity thermodynamic simulation? Right? Would that be a hard thing to integrate with their overall model? Like background simulation thermodynamics versus in-flight, like in-scene thermodynamics. Could you think you could swap to a higher fidelity thermodynamic system? NASA press conference soon. I know. It depends on how they choose to implement multiplayer. If every computer computes its own model, or if there's an equivalent of a server managing the simulation for everyone, they can choose to do it in different ways. Hybrid even, but that adds complexity. Yeah, okay. In multiplayer, what's local to you may be background for someone else. No, bingo. Okay, cool. That's a good point. I answered my own question with you guys' help. Because it's scaled around multiplayer, simplifying the thermodynamics across everybody's system is probably better. Thermodynamic systems. Nice. Would you expect them to match it exactly? Would you accept different behavior? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could do that, but it'd be weird if you have several heads players working on many secondary ships. It's LOD for physics. It's difficult. Yeah. Got it. Peer-to-peer could distribute the thermal model. If each computer did its local thermal calculation and passed a chunk of that data to everybody else, then everyone else wouldn't have to compute it. Peer-to-peer could distribute the thermal model. If each computer did its local thermal calculation, passed it to a chunk of that data. Everyone else. Well, Riv, couldn't that potentially cause client-to-client desync, similar to like what you see on, like if someone has a different ping than somebody else? Because like in first-person shooters, what you see isn't necessarily what's happening on the server. So like there are times, like for instance in a game like Counter-Strike, where you shoot somebody square in the forehead, nothing happens. And they just shoot you in the face, but they have a bloodstain right here, but there's a little bit of desync because of ping, right? So that basically your computer's simulating what's going on while it's communicating with the server, and so is the other guys, right? And sometimes that lags a little bit behind. Yes, I mean more like a shooter model. The game cares about the local scene and gathers the background thermal data from others. Yeah, Riverne, I got you. Yeah. I would think some desync would be far more acceptable in a game like this than an FPS, though. That's a good point, DSM. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I mean, I'm just turning gears. Just wondering. Okay, simplifying environmental interactions. Similar to the previous bullet, the level of interaction between the environment and any given part can be simplified. The ex-thermal physicist in me is pretty sad we won't be modeling the differences between long-wave and short-wave radiative transfer in low-carbon orbit, but I'll get over it. I'll take desync glitching in favor of better overall frames. It really depends on how they decide to implement multiplayer. Yeah, I mean, all systems... I have another question. What type of multiplayer do you think this style of thermodynamic computation is enabling? Like, do you think we could extrapolate how multiplayer is going to work from how they're simplifying the thermodynamic model? Is that possible? Not when two people have to dock something together with low fuel. Desync can ruin something like that. That's a good point, Blue. Yeah. It's a blank slate. IMO, they could do local scene computation and receive a tick at any given interval from a server. Because I'm really kind of wondering, like, I mean, on one hand, you'd have a dedicated server for KSP2 multiplayer, right? They have a dedicated server package built in, right? And if you have a dedicated server package or dedicated server software with it, I mean, that would work like a shooter, where you're basically giving data to the server and the server is distributing it to all the other clients connected, right? But if it's peer-to-peer, I would say you'd probably want a simplified model to make sure that everybody, right? If it's P2P, like GTA Online, for instance, or something like that, you'd probably want a simplified model. Yeah. You remember the Starbase game? That's a shooter model. Yeah. Starbase was fun, man. It was a good game. Peer-to-peer can be done, but then you need a way to resolve conflict if two peers say different things. Yeah. See, this... I mean, all systems, sometimes in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, KSP2 has taken some time. But then I think of conversations like this. This is not an easy problem to solve by any means. Syncing all of the crazy simulation that Kerbal does over a multiplayer client, peer-to-peer or dedicated, is literally going to take actual rocket scientists, like, to solve that freaking problem. And Nirtea is, actually, yeah, he's a he was a rocket scientist once. Pretty cool dude. There are quorum algorithms, but they aren't fast, so my guess is someone would be elected as leader. Yeah. You never finished your ship. I had other stuff to do. To be fair, you'd also want to simplify a model. To simplify a model if you want a lot of players on the same server. That's a good point, Latte. Tony Stark was able to build KSP2 in a cave with a box of scraps. Shape of the solution. Given all the above, we have designed a new rad system. More puns. KSP2's thermal system will use a model based around managing heat fluxes, the amount of energy applied to something over some amount of time. Every process we want to model boils down to applying a heat flux to a part. This flux can be positive, causing a part to increase in temperature, or it can be negative, causing a decrease. Here's a sampling of fluxes we care about from our user stories. Positive flux from things going in a part, such as drilling, resource production, and powerful engine reactions. Negative fluxes from things going in a part, like heat radiators or other heat sinks. Positive flux from stellar sources and sunlight. Positive or negative fluxes from warm or cold atmospheres, fluid bodies, or surfaces. And positive fluxes from high velocities in atmospheres. Yeah, boils down to this guy, though. Using this model, we can sum up all the fluxes affecting a part and communicate a single value to the player. If the sum of all fluxes is positive, the part heats up. If it is negative, the part cools down. In the absence of any fluxes, a part is stable. If the part's temperature increases above its maximum, well, you get an explosion. Re-entry shock plus 256 kilowatts, atmospheric convection minus 100 kilowatts, net flux plus 156, re-entry shock 0, atmospheric convection minus 150, net flux. So, yeah, this is like, so using heat flux as your kind of like main stat for thermodynamics is like using addition for all math. Like, you can get a lot done with addition, but it's not calculus, you know what I mean? But everyone understands edition. Do you have any info on multiplayer, like player count or dedicated or not? I have no idea. No, I got nothing, dude. All systems. That's why I asked you if we could kind of extrapolate what they're gonna do with multiplayer from the thermodynamics simulation. Thermal system in a re-entry context. Yeah, okay, let's look at a re-entry case. A capsule with a heat shield traveling quickly into the atmosphere. Here we have the presence of a convection flux on both parts, as we have an atmosphere and a re-entry flux as we're moving fast. The capsule is being occluded by the heat shield, and the heat shield is getting a positive flux. It is heating up and the capsule is not. Yeah, all systems, right? Yeah. Wouldn't you need something to store all that, like a capacitor of sorts? A sink can do that. Let that sink in, bud. Let's look at another case of a 3-part spacecraft in order around Kerbin. In the first image, we have an idle spacecraft doing nothing. No flux given. Nothing changes. In the second image, the engines are firing. That's not just me, right? Generating a positive flux, so it is heating up. There are otherwise no fluxes. In the absence of anything else happening, the engine part will eventually explode. A more complex ship makes for a more complex example. Now, let's add radiators in the mix. Here I haven't labeled all the parts, but we have an ion drive spaceship with a nuclear reactor. In the first image, the radiators are not working and the reactor is on. The reactor part is heating up as it outputs 200 kilowatt of heat flux and it will eventually fail. In the second part, we thankfully extended the radiators and they're pulling 100 kilowatts of heat flux from the reactor. Everything is balanced and nothing will explode. I wonder if distance from part in the hierarchy makes a difference. It makes a difference in KSP 1. As a last example, let's make it complicated. I've simplified the doodle though. Here's a colony in an atmosphere. The cooling tower is using 2 megawatts of heat flux. The reactor is making 2 megawatts. The factory is making 1 megawatt, and we're using the water as a heat sink to dump 2 megawatts of flux. We have a nice little negative flux, and our colony is happy because the engineers considered the environment. It's a great story because it starts to show you where you might end up with advantages and disadvantages in terms of colony placement. If that water was lava, this would not be a good thermal situation. We can see how this system is plannable too. Although there are a lot of details, a player technically only needs to know what the net heat flux is on their whole vessel. No matter how many different parts are making heat, and no matter how the environment is configured, each part just contributes a single number to the situation. Add them all up. If it's positive, you have a problem. If it's 0 or negative, you don't. Second part of this is how we define relevant fluxes. Instead of having a very complex environmental model where we specify every possible flux and simulate them for every possible source, KSP2 assumes that every part has some level of ability to self-regulate in an average thermal environment. Kerbals build tough. Positive fluxes will only start to appear in well-defined abnormal situations that correspond to user stories and the puzzles we want players to solve. Thus, the user stories from before. Yeah, okay. Is this KSP2 or a City? KSP2 or a Cities 2 dev blog? Yeah, there you go. As your vessel approaches a star, yep. Things that can get hot and cold. Yeah, got it. We'll apply negative fluxes at times where you might expect useful temperature drops in response to intuitive situations. When your vessel is floating on an icy ocean or flying in a frigid atmosphere. When a part is doing something that removes heat, like running a heat radiator. Yep. Whoa. Okay. Interesting. All right. Using these two concepts, we can work through all the user stories we defined in the previous sections and reduce the things we need to communicate to a player to effectively two values: the net heat flux on a part and the temperature of a part. The former is something you want to make as close to zero as possible, and the latter is something that tells you how close you are to a critical failure. A word on temperatures and maximums. There is a relationship between the temperature of the environment and the temperature of a part. Typically, you simply can't bring a part into an environment it hasn't been designed for. If you try taking a part with low heat tolerance, let's say it breaks at 500 K, into a 600 K atmosphere, you're going to be in trouble regardless of the local heat fluxes. In this case, you need creative solutions like cargo bays. Ooh, this is getting into the good stuff. But we have the Artemis press conference. I'll leave this open and we'll get back to it a little bit later. There's an Artemis 2 press conference update happening, and yeah, I would like to, check that out. Okay, let's go. Artemis to move